Hello, everybody. Let's visit me, Ma. And today is a sad day, but I want to remember happy things. Did you remember when you got up this morning who you were? Huh? What day it was? Huh? You are getting so good at this. I'm going to have to get harder questions for y'all in the morning. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know. You think you got the answer to everything, don't you? You're so funny. Oh, my. Well, my dog, Clyde, died yesterday morning. And I just couldn't put a video up. I'm sorry. I was just trying to figure out what to do. You know, it's hard to bury someone you love. No matter who it is, you know, it doesn't matter. Whoever you love, right? Well, yesterday after Clyde died, I thought I would keep busy, crying and keep busy at the same time. So I'm digging a hole. That's what I'm doing. I was digging and digging. All of a sudden it started pouring down rain. Well, my hole filled up with water, and I said, well, this isn't going to work. So after the day of raining, I decided, well, I had Clyde all covered up with a tarp, and me and my sister had our crying time together because we found him both at the same time. Yesterday morning out in the yard, looks like he was just heading home, and he just fell over, I guess, with a heart attack and just died. But I want to share some funny stories about Clyde. Well, how I got Clyde in my life is I moved to the hills from the city here, North Little Rock, and I moved to Hardy and bought me a little house, little tiny house. It was not in great shape, and I won't go into the details of the home, but I was there, and the first spring, I met Clyde. I had seen Clyde running through the woods, but I had not met him yet. And one day I was out in the yard trying to decide where I was going to move rocks for flower beds. And this man came in a hover-round, an electric wheelchair, and he come out from underneath the dogwood grove back there. And he said, howdy. And I said, howdy. And he had this little dog. That was Clyde. Well, the man had lost both legs and was living in a little tiny trailer back through the woods past, behind my house, closer to the highway out there. And his son and his wife and child lived next door to him. So he lived in this little tiny little RV. And he had Clyde. Well, he got Clyde thinking Clyde was a Chihuahua. Well, he wasn't a Chihuahua, as you've seen the pictures of him. He's a wonderful, he's a Corky mixed with maybe a Chihuahua. I don't know, but he was a hunter. And I used to watch him in the woods. He would jump, like jump in the woods, jump in the woods, jump in the woods, like he was leaping, like leapfrog, all through the woods. He was just an amazing dog, and he'd go down through the ravine, down way low, couldn't see him, and the next thing I know, he's still hopping, going to the top of the next hill. And you go over the next hill about a mile, maybe a mile, 2 miles, and there is the building that the offices of the complex we lived in. So he was just one of those characters that just come up to you and just said, hello, do you have anything for me today? Or if he went out woods, he'd bring something in, but he was always perky. Always like, okay, what are we going to do? And he loved riding tractors, and he loved four-wheelers, and he loved everything. He was just that kind of puppy, and he was wild. You know, he wouldn't come in the house and rest and stay warm. He'd go out there in the woods and dig him a place out in the leaves, and that's where he would sleep. Would it be snow on the ground, cold, or ice? He was still out there. That's what he did. And then he moved, you know, to appropriate places as he saw fit. So he was sort of a wild puppy. But everybody in the whole neighborhood knew him. He was just one of those kind of guys, right? Even one time, they picked him up and took him to the pound in Highland, which is 2 towns over. And the people there in the pound says, Clyde's here. They all knew Clyde. So anyway, I'd go rescue him from the pound. And in the acres, they had a little cage where they collected dogs in our neighborhood and put them in there and then took them to the pound. But every time they would put Clyde into the cage, I guess, he would escape, and they just couldn't figure out how he was doing that. So they nicknamed him. I can't remember now what they called him, but he could get out, escape artist. That's what they called him. Well, I lived up there about 10 years or so, and all during that time, during that time, they put JB into the nursing home. And so he left his puppy there. So his son and his wife and the son and all. Well, he knew everybody, the whole big family. John had a big family, and Dill still does. Anyway, JB went into the nursing home, and I thought, maybe I'll take Clyde. So I put him in my car, and I drove all the way to where he was. I can't remember where it was now. I don't remember. But anyway, I took him out there, and he jumped up on JB's bed, and they were just so happy. And so JB got in a wheelchair and went outside with a leash. He was holding Clyde, and little Clyde, he was just pulling him all through the nursing home and outside. He was just having fun. He was with his daddy, and he'd jump up on a wheelchair. I got a picture of him somewhere. And we did that several times, you know, as I had gas money to go that far. But so Clyde sort of became a fixture in our neighborhood between Janice and Gary, who lived next door, and then my sister had a cottage, and her family would go there, and he would go over there begging for hot dogs from her husband, ex-husband. So he was character. But I'll have to tell you 2 stories. One story is he always loved to ride, right? And I had a little Pekingese. His name was Charlie. Looked just like Connor, except smaller. Anyway, so Charlie and Clyde would get in my car, and here we go, downtown Hardy. You know, it's about 7 miles, something like that. And I had to go to the bank, sign some papers. So I just left the car running, you know, and just ran inside. And I came back out. He was gone. Now, Charlie was still sitting in the back seat, but Clyde was gone. He had rolled down the window. He had gone through the window, and there was McDonald's right there. And I looked over there, and he was standing between 2 trucks in line at McDonald's. If I had thought, I should have got my camera and took a picture of that. Oh, it was terrible. Of course, then I had to get a Happy Meal after getting back to the car. He was in line. And one time I went to town, you know, loaded up the 2 guys, and Charlie and Clyde, put them in the car and went to the grocery store to pick up a few items. So again, stupid me. I left the car running in front of the store because I was just going to pick up something, eggs or something like that. Well, I came back to the car. Well, the window was down and he was gone. And I thought, oh, Charlie was sitting there on the back seat. Like, I don't know. I'm innocent. I didn't do nothing. So I said, well, maybe he went in the store. So I went in the store and the first person cashier, I said, have you seen my dog? And she says, oh, yeah, he's back in the meat department. I walked back there and there was Clyde talking to the guy in the meat department. True story. These are true stories of him. He's a rascal. He really is. Smart as a tack. Smart as a tack. So when Janice and Gary moved out, and then David and Barbara moved in, and of course he said, okay, welcome to the neighborhood. Leave dog food on the front porch, because Janice always left her cat food out on the front porch, and Clyde would go over and eat. He could sustain himself. You didn't have to feed him, and he would chase and eat chipmunks and squirrels, and one day he brought a deer head. Somebody had slaughtered a deer, and he evidently he just went and got the head and brought it between my house and Janice and Gary's house. I tried to get rid of that deer head every time he wasn't looking. But he was something else. I mean, he was something else. And so when I was afraid to bring him out of the woods. He knew it so well. But he's traveled with me, lived in the trailer with me, and he did good. He adapted very well to everybody there. And Charlie, of course, had been killed. And so I just got Connor when I moved to the trailer. And then I moved into the old folks' place, and he stayed with my sister, who had a big backyard anyway. And now I'm back here by my sister's in her apartment. And he had done well, but he just had a heart attack yesterday, and kaput. I guess he was 13 years old, but he was still chasing squirrels, and I think he could still fend for himself. But in the last couple of weeks, he has been wanting to cover himself up with leaves out in the back of the yard here. And usually that's a sign, because the wild animals will go out in the woods, you know, and sort of get themselves make them a bed or something to prepare themselves, I guess. Sometimes they don't come home. But, yeah, he was starting to do that. And so I was fearful, but I thought, well, you know, if he's got dementia, he's just reliving his youth. Because when he was a kid, he just loved the leaves and hide in the leaves. And yeah, even when it snows, he was out there in his leaves. He loved it. And it got too bad. He'd come up and sit on my porch swing, but he wouldn't come in my house. And one winter, I guess 6 years later, one winter, he got cold. And he was getting older. And he'd been hit by a truck, bit by a rattlesnake. And, you know, he just kept, I mean, he was down when he was hit by the truck, he was down a month, good month. And, but I, you know, he just was one of those fellas that just bounced right back with everything. And the attitude was always the same. He was always happy, alert, ready to do whatever you wanted to do. And if you didn't have anything, he's going to figure out something to do. And I will miss him because he's been through all this with me through the years. And I will miss him. So I've been out digging a hole, trying to get him buried. And I was successful this morning. And put him to rest. He had a wonderful life. I mean, we traveled in that car when I was able. Oh, when I had a car. Oh, yes. We just had a good time together. He had a good life. And everybody in the community up there just loved him. So sometimes I'd say, wonder where Clyde is? And I'd see him riding on somebody's four-wheeler going through the woods with him. If he wasn't in there and there wasn't enough room where all the other dogs are on there, he was running behind. or taking a shortcut where they have to go around. He can just go straight on. I'll miss him. I'll miss him. Let's see if we have any comments this morning. I hope you're doing well. Everybody's recovering. All the hop-alongs are taking care of themselves. And if y'all don't know what hop-alongs are, those are our buddies in our community who have had foot surgery or broken ankles. And, you know, just, I think we have 3 hop-alongs. Oh, let's see. It won't hook up to my Wi-Fi this morning, so I may not be able to get messages. Let me try one more time. But yeah, it's been some day, but it's going to be better. Got my coffee. Going to move forward. Taking care of things I need to take care of, and continuing to crochet on my new project. I guess I told you about it. Did I yesterday or day before? I'm using that real pretty yarn. And no, I guess I haven't talked to you about her. I may have. But what I'm doing is crocheting a little scarf using 1 strand and creating 3 strands of yarn as I go through to make it thicker, bulkier. Yeah, I don't know where it is. There it is. Right there. So it's turned, you can tell here that I've turned 1 strand into 3. And I thought it would be harder. The only thing I have to remember is that another step that I have to do. And that just amazes me that works so well. But it's just like, I don't know if you can see the loop in the middle there or not. See the loop in the middle? That is what keeps you going. There. That's your main line of yarn. And then it loops. Well, you can't tell. There's some great videos out there. In fact, Crochet Crowd, he's got a really good one. And there's a couple ladies that do some great jobs teaching it. But yes, it makes it into a bulkier yarn from a 1 to a 3. And I may be experiment, but I've got other skeins that if this works, then I can go ahead and create some other things. But it's very soft yarn. Very soft yarn, as you can tell here. Very soft. That's from Butterfly and the Little Scholars up there in Pennsylvania. Yes, I hadn't heard from them this year. I think I got a message, a text message, and but I couldn't read it very well, so I just told them hello and hugs to all of them. But anyway, I'm going to continue on my project because this is not connecting, and I don't know why. So I'm just going to turn it off and worry about that another day. And be patient with me on reading your comments until I get this video up. I'll try to work on the comments again. So anyway, remember, God has you in the palm of his hand. Big hands. He does. Pray for Mother Earth, the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees, and all the precious love of others, and little doggies, little fur babies, little birds, even a snake or 2. Yes. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow.